We will see today 4,500 military personnel marching in honor of celebration of the Independence Day. The Armed Forces, the National Guard, the State Border Guard Service, and other divisions that defend Ukraine participate in the event. Alongside them, for the first time, is an all-women's brigade. Also joining the celebration are delegations from 18 partnering countries, and the newest weaponry, jet fighters, tanks, anti-aircraft missile systems, dozens of helicopters will be showcased on the Independence Square in the center of Kiev. And a long-awaited public debut of Bohdana, self-propelled howitzer designed in Ukraine, will also take place today in the center of the Ukrainian capital. It's sunny in Kiev. Now we can see the faces of the Ukrainian soldiers that are going to march today through the Independence Square and the Kreshchatek Street in the center of Kiev. The people in the center of Kiev are awaiting the start of the parade, and here is the orchestra, the military orchestra, also being ready to accompany the
Бойові
band.
прапори військових частин внести.
Now you can hear the command to bring the battle flags for the military divisions. This means that the parade is right about to start.
Війська! Ліворуч! Рівняйсь! Струнко! Рівняння! Ліворуч!
First Deputy Chief of the National Defense University of Ukraine, Lieutenant General Tarasov, is lining up the soldiers with the commands eyes left, attention, and reports. He's about to report about the readiness of the troops to march through the center of Kiev.
Командує парадом командувач
The
сухопутних
parade will be led by the
військ
commander of the ground forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Colonel General Serhiy Popko. He's going to detour around the divisions soon.
Пане командувач парадом! Війська для параду з нагоди 27-ї річниці незалежності України та 100-річчя відродження української державності вишукувані. Перший заступник начальника Національного університету оборони України генерал-лейтенант Tarasov.
And Lieutenant General Tarasov has just reported about the readiness of the troops to march through the center of Kiev.
Учасники сьогоднішнього військового параду є нащадками славетних воїнів.
The participants of the current military parade are descendants of famous warriors, fighters for Ukraine's independence, successors to national traditions of all generations of defenders of our native land. For the courage and heroism shown during the conducting the combat missions in the east of Ukraine, the vast majority of participants in the parade have been awarded with the state and departmental awards.
Учасників бойових дій. У провідному військовому виші Сьогодні проходять службу і навчаються біля 1000 офіцерів, які брали і беруть участь у бойових діях на сході нашої держави. 54 випускники університету нагороджені високими державними нагородами. 10 із них присвоєно високе звання Героя України. У сьогоднішньому парадному строю знаходяться стипендіати президента України, учасники.
During the tour ritual of Serhiy Babkar around the military divisions in the center of Kyiv, we can show you how the pilots are getting ready for the second part of the parade, for the military equipment parade
Виконали свій службовий обов'язок на сході
and
України.
military aircrafts.
Старшина Олександр Рихлюк, сержант Олексій Лощилін, молодший сержант Михайло Деркач, солдати В'ячеслав Половніков та Вадим Матвійчак. Серед особового складу парадних розрахунків учасники Революції Гідності, курсант Національної академії сухопутних військ імені гетьмана Петра Сагайдачного, молодший сержант Андрій Чагаров, військовослужбовець 36-ї окремої бригади морської піхоти матрос Денис Аман, військовослужбовець резерву старший солдат Віталій Харченко.
You can see on your screens that lots of Ukrainians, Kyiv residents and guests of the city are coming to the capital's city center, Kreshchatek Street and Independence Square, which is also famous as Maidan. This is where the Revolution of Dignity and Orange Revolution were happening. Actually, the interesting thing is that hundreds of people were also attending the rehearsals of the Grand Parade. It certainly shows the growth of patriotism among Ukrainians. And by the way, the sociologists from the rating group are saying that this year, 2018, shows the biggest number in history of supporters of the Ukrainian independence. After 1991, when it was actually voted and signed, 79% of respondents. Just the data for comparison, 6 years ago, only over half of respondents were patriots. Also, more people now are identifying themselves firstly as Ukrainians. Now it's 66% of respondents.
Серед почесних гостей керівний склад та представники оборонних відомств Австрійської Республіки, Азербайджанської Республіки, Великої Британії,
Delegations from 18 partner countries also participate in the main national holiday today. Among the honorable guests, leaders and representatives of the defense agencies of Austria, Azerbaijan, the United Kingdom, Georgia, Denmark, Estonia, Canada, Latvia, Lithuania, Moldova, Poland, Romania, Slovakia, the United States of America, Germany, Sweden, the Czech Republic, and Montenegro.
Службовці управління Державної охорони України. Щодня співробітники управління сумлінно та професійно виконують свій обов'язок із забезпечення належної безпеки, функціонування органів державної влади та охорони визначених законом вищих посадових осіб. Військовослужбовці правоохоронного органу спеціального призначення завжди демонструють вірність державі, народові, закону.
State border guards are also taking part in this year's parade, always performing their duty, especially nowadays in the east of Ukraine, defending the territorial sovereignty of the country. I want to pay attention on the flags that are going to start the event, the parade, for the second year in a row during the celebration of the Independence Day. On the main square of the capital, flags of the Army of the Ukrainian People's Republic are being unfurled. This is the 1st Ukrainian Regiment, named after Bogdan Khmelnytsky, the Ukrainian Zaporizhzhia Regiment, the flag of the 2nd Zaporizhzhia Infantry Regiment, and the flag of the 3rd Iron Rifle Division of the Army of the Ukrainian People's Republic. We had last year only 2 historical flags participating in the military parade, and now this year we're going to have 4 of them. The flags of the Ukrainian People's Republic. Now we can see the car with the president of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. According to the Ukrainian legislation, he is the supreme commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Ukraine.
Шановні пані та панове, генерали, адмірали, офіцери, старшини, сержанти, солдати і матроси. Президент України, Верховний головнокомандувач Збройних сил України Петро Порошенко.
The chief and the General Staff Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, General Viktor Muzhenko, has met the president. They are going to the honorary presidium with dignitaries and top officials, not only from Ukraine, but also, as I mentioned, from 18 partner countries.
Війська на державний прапор України. Струнко. Для зустрічі ліворуч.
The ceremony of raising the national flag is about to start. Honorary Guard unit of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine will carry it on the Independence Square. Every soldier is greeting the yellow and blue flag with their right hand near the temple and head facing the flag.
Державний прапор України – це символ національної
The state flag of Ukraine is a symbol of national unity, honor, and dignity, traditions of state formation, history, and presence. Under a blue-yellow bond, various generations of Ukrainians fought for their freedom and the creation of the Ukrainian independent state. Under this flag, thousands of heroes today are standing for peace of the Ukrainians.
Саме у державному прапорі втілена українська звитяга, наша незламна.
Interesting fact that the day of the national flag was celebrated just yesterday, as every year on the day before Independence Day, and yesterday the largest flag flying over Ukrainian city was raised on the highest flagpole. This record was set in Dnipro city. The blue and gold symbol is 12 by 18 meters large over there, and the pole stands at 72 meters tall. Can you imagine how giant it is?
Вшанування багатовікової історії національного державотворення та виховання поваги громадян до державних символів України. Відповідним указом глави держави щорічно 23 серпня урочисто відзначається День державного прапора України. Очолює прапороносну групу учасник бойових.
The flag-bearing group is being led by the ADO participant, Deputy Commander of the Battalion of the Honorary Guard, Major Yevhen Solodayev. And the right to raise the national flag of Ukraine is given to the best soldiers of the Honorable Guard, to Warrant Officer Alexander Kirchky, First Sergeant Anatoly Kosyuha, and Serhiy Paliy. While the flag is being raised on the Independence Square in the center of Kiev, the choir is performing Ukraine's national anthem.
Запануй
Ми Україна.
We are
Армія
Ukraine.
боронить нашу землю.
The army is
Мова
defending our
боронить
country.
наше серце.
The language is
А
defending
віра
our hearts.
боронить нашу
Faith defends our
За стародавньою
soul.
традицією, яка бере
And
свій
as
початок ще
an
з часів
ancient
Руси
tradition
України,
says, dating back to the time of Kiev and Rus,
молитва
we
за
now
військо
pray
України.
for the army of
Молитву
Ukraine.
звершують військові капелани, військових частин, навчальних закладів та
The military
установ
chaplains
Сил
are going to
оборони
perform the prayer,
у супроводі зведеного військового хору.
accompanied by the joint military choir. You can see the military chaplains are taking position in front of the troops while the prayer. By the way, the chaplains of military units are being involved in the parade for the first time. They carry out pastoral care of the military personnel. The fight in the east of Ukraine proved the important role of pastors in the spiritual support of the soldiers. And a solemn prayer is completed.
Ліворуч, рівняйсь. Струнко,
The command eyes left, attention.
зброєю. Честь. Дякую.
The military parade is being started. Different units, different divisions of the armed forces of Ukraine, and also the divisions from the partnering countries are going to march, and after them,
Військовий парад
the equipment
приймає
will also be
міністр оборони
present
України,
in the center of
армії
Kiev.
України Степан Полторак.
Now, the military parade will be hosted by the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, General Stepan Poltorak.
Пане міністре оборони України, війська для параду.
The leader of the parade is commanding
27-ї річниці незалежності
about
України
the readiness of the troops to participate in the grand parade on the occasion of the 27th anniversary of independence of Ukraine.
Міністр оборони України у супроводі командувача сухопутних військ починає об'їзд.
Now, the Minister of Defense, Stepan Poltorak, is about to detour around the divisions in order to greet them on the occasion of Independence Day. He will be accompanied by the commander of the ground forces, Serhiy
Міністр
Popko.
оборони України вітає офіцерів Національного університету
The Minister of
оборони
Defense
України.
congratulates the officers of the National University of Defense of Ukraine.
Слава Україні!
He welcomes everyone with the new official Ukrainian military greeting, "Glory to Ukraine." The soldiers are responding, "Glory to the heroes." Happy 27th anniversary of Ukraine's independence, he says. And the soldiers are responding, "Glory, glory, glory." The Minister of Defense of Ukraine congratulates soldiers of the Joint Battalion of the Ground Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. And by the way, this new official military greeting, "Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes," gained its momentum during the Revolution of Dignity in 2013-2014. Now the minister is going to greet the personnel of the Joint Battalion of the Marines. Glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes.
Міністр оборони наближається до зведеного батальйону десантно-штурмових військ.
Stepan Poltorak is about to greet Joint Battalion of the Airborne Assault Forces.
Вітаю десантників з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
And again, happy 27th anniversary of Ukraine's independence.
Міністр оборони України вітає зі святом військовослужбовців резерву Збройних сил України.
And now the Minister of Defense of Ukraine will greet the servicemen of the reserve of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
Слава Україні! Вітаю учасників бойових дій резерв Збройних сил України з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Автомобіль міністра оборони України наближається до парадного розрахунку воїнів-артилеристів.
The car with the Minister of Defense is getting closer to the cannoneers.
Слава Україні! Вітаю артилерістів з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
З міністром оборони України вітаються курсанти Військового інституту танкових військ.
The cadets of the Military Institute of the Tank Corps are greeting the Minister of Defense of Ukraine.
Вітаю танкістів з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
The minister is greeting every unit, every battalion.
Офіцерів повітряних сил Збройних сил України.
And now he's about to greet the future officers of the Air Forces, of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
Вітаю майбутніх офіцерів повітряних сил з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Міністр оборони України вітає зі святом військовослужбовців військово-морських сил.
And next to be greeted by the minister are servicemen of the Ukrainian Navy.
Слава Україні! Вітаю військовослужбовців військово-морських сил з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Вітання міністра оборони України з військовослужбовцями сил спеціальних операцій.
The minister is about to greet Special Operations Forces servicemen.
Слава Україні! Вітаю військовослужбовців сил спеціальних операцій з 27-ю
This is the new
річницею
army.
незалежності України.
All of the units are wearing also a brand new uniform.
З міністром оборони України вітаються воїни-розвідники.
Now it's turn of reconnaissance soldiers to greet the minister, Stepan Poltorak.
Вітаю розвідників з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Міністр оборони України вітає зі святом воїнів-зв'язківців.
And now the minister, General Stepan Poltorak, is greeting communication agents.
Вітаю зв'язківців з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Міністр оборони України наближається до зведеного батальйону майбутніх офіцерів Збройних сил України.
And now the Minister of Defense of Ukraine is going to pass the joint battalion of future officers of the armed forces of Ukraine.
Слава Україні! Вітаю майбутніх офіцерів
And
Збройних сил
for the
України.
first time, all women battalion is taking part in the military parade on the 27th anniversary.
Слухачі Національної академії внутрішніх справ.
Слава
And now the
Україні!
students of the National Academy of Internal Affairs are greeting the General Stepan Poltorak.
Вітаю офіцерів поліції з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Міністр оборони України вітає воїнів Національної гвардії України.
The Minister of Defense is greeting the soldiers of the National Guard of Ukraine.
Вітаю спецслужбовців Національної гвардії України з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Міністр оборони України зупиняється для привітання курсантів Національної академії Національної гвардії
Now the
України.
Minister of Defense steps to congratulate the cadets of the National Academy of the National Guard of Ukraine.
Вітаю курсантів Національної академії Національної гвардії з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
And again, the soldiers are shouting glory 3 times. Now the minister is moving to congratulate the Ukrainian border guards.
Слава Україні! Вітаю прикордонників з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Святкове вітання міністра оборони України з курсантами.
Festive congratulations to cadets of the National Academy of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, named after Bogdan Khmelnytsky.
Слава Україні! Вітаю курсантів Національної академії Державної прикордонної служби з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
З міністром оборони України вітаються курсанти Національної академії служби безпеки України.
And now the cadets of the National Academy of the Security Service of Ukraine are greeting the minister.
Вітаю спецслужбовців Служби безпеки України з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Міністр оборони України вітає курсантів Національного університету цивільного захисту
The
України.
minister greets the cadets of the National University of Civil Protection.
Слава Україні! Вітаю рятувальників з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
З міністром оборони України вітаються військовослужбовці окремого полку президента України імені гетьмана Богдана
Soldiers of the
Хмельницького.
President's Separate Regiment, named after Hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky, are greeting the Minister of Defense, General Stepan
Вітаю
Poltorak.
військовослужбовців окремого полку президента України з 27-ю річницею незалежності України.
Міністр оборони України здійснює об'їзд парадних розрахунків армій країн-партнерів, які беруть участь у параді військ.
The Minister of Defense carries a tour around the army representatives of the partner countries participating in the grand parade of the troops.
Антитерористичної операції.
The minister is getting closer to the joint unit of veterans of the anti-terrorist operation.
Слава Україні!
And again, glory to Ukraine, glory to the heroes,
антитерористичної операції з 27-ю
the new
річницею
official Ukrainian
незалежності
military
України.
greeting. The soldiers are answering unison,
Міністр оборони України
and now the
зупиняється для
Minister of
привітання
Defense of
особового
Ukraine
складу
steps for the greetings of the
зведеної
personnel of the
механізованої
joint mechanized column.
Слава Україні! Вітаю військовослужбовців механізованої колони з 27-ю річницею незалежності України!
And now we can see the aircrafts taking off from the military airport. Soon they will come to the center of Kiev. They will appear in the sky above the Krещатик Street and also Independence Square. The aviation is going to complete today's parade. The detour of the units taking part in the military parade is completed, and the car of the Minister of Defense of Ukraine returns to the Independence Square. You can see that all of the soldiers are shouting glory. The female battalion is also shouting glory. I hope you noticed how the audience greeted the participants of the female battalion for the first time in history on the occasion of Ukraine's Independence Day.
Автомобіль міністра оборони України повертається до Майдану Незалежності.
Those people are defending the peace of Ukrainian territories, the territorial integrity, the sovereignty of our country. These young faces, sometimes it is unbelievable how young they are. But despite being young, they are powerful and strong, and this is the new army of Ukraine. And the minister is arriving to the stage.
Міністр оборони України доповідає президентові України, Верховному головнокомандувачу
The Minister of
Збройних
Defense,
Сил України,
General Stepan Poltorak, is reporting to the President, the Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, about the readiness of all military divisions to participate in the festive march.
Пане Президент, Верховний головнокомандуючий Збройними силами України, війська до проведення параду з нагоди 27-ї річниці незалежності України та 100-річчя державності України готові. Міністр оборони, генерал армії Полторак.
The President greets the Minister of Defense, Stepan Poltorak. Now you can see the panorama of Kiev. The city center is crowded, full of Kiev residents and guests of the city that came to see the main event, the celebration of the Ukrainian statehood.
Слово має президент України.
Now it's time for the
Петро
speech
Порошенко.
of the President Petro Poroshenko.
Зродились ми великої години.
We were born a
Пожеж
great hour.
війни і полум'я вогнив.
From burning war
Плекав
and
нас
flames of fire,
біль за долю України.
we were nourished by the
Ростив
pain for the fate of
нас
Ukraine.
гнів і лють на ворогів.
We were grown by wrath and fury to our enemies, dear compatriots,
Шановні гості,
dear guests.
це слова маршу нової
These are the words of the march of the new army,
перше пролунає на
which is going to
нашому
premiere
військовому
today for the
параді.
first time at our military
Створили
parade.
його на основі легендарної пісні, написаної
It's based on the legendary song written in the late 20s of the last century, and it symbolizes the inextricable connection between different generations of fighters for freedom of our motherland.
Великою годиною для нас, українців, стали останні 4
Truly, the last 4.5 years have become a great hour for Ukrainians. We have gone through an incredible test of the war and the economic crisis that were caused by the Russian aggression.
Тисячі і тисячі українців.
Thousands and thousands of Ukrainians have died from the hands of the enemy, military and civilians, men, women, who were tested for
Намагалися
strength
розділити
and for the
народ
gap.
і розчленувати країну.
Our enemies tried to divide our nation and dismember the country.
Хотіли загнати
tried
волелюбний народ до
to
захвасоружної
block
імперське
our
сіль.
movement to Europe. They wanted to drive the freedom-loving
Дякую
people back
кожному
into an
українцю за те, що ми з вами
imperial
вистояли.
stall. Thanks God and thanks to every Ukrainian for
Але й наростили
survival.
м'язи.
But it's not just survival during the bad times. We built up strong muscles.
власних можливостях.
We became stronger and more confident in
Майбутні
our
роки
own
десятиліття
abilities.
заклали основу для руху вперед з чіткими стратегічними орієнтирами
We
на
built up the
Європейський Союз.
foundation for clear strategic orientations for the European Union and NATO for future years and
Цей
decades.
рік є особливий тим, що
Dear
ми
Ukrainians,
відзначаємо століття
This year is
незалежності
special
УНР,
because of the celebration of 100th anniversary of independence of the Ukrainian People's Republic, proclaimed by the Fourth Universal of the Central Council.
об'єдналися в єдину.
The 100th anniversary of the Unification Act is also happening soon when the Ukrainian People's Republic and the Western Ukrainian People's Republic have united into a single state.
Державу тоді
The Ukrainian National Revolution,
наші предки не встояли в тій війні з Росією.
but after this struggles for liberation, our ancestors did not withstand in the war with Russia, just as our hetmans Ivan Vyhovsky and Ivan Mazeppa did not withstand also. The reasons were different, but the result is one and the same: long years of tragic dependence on the empire, with repressions, famines, with the attempts to destroy the Ukrainian language and dissolve the Ukrainian people in the vast expanses of Eurasia.
Перед нашим поколінням
Our generations have got a challenge to break the fatal historical circle, to make Ukraine's independence as before, not measured by months or a few years.
потім
And so
довгими
then
десятиліттями бездержавності
we
не оплакували її втрату.
do not mourn for losing the statehood for many decades. So we do not analyze the causes of another defeat.
Щоби пишалися перемогами і гордилися
But we are
успіхами.
proud of
За
victories
4 роки війни, яку
and
Росія
achievements.
розв'язала проти України,
For 4 years of war that Russia
зміцнили її.
has said against Ukraine. We have saved the state
Консолідувалася
and
на засадах
strengthened
захисту
it.
країни і
The
патріотизму.
nation was consolidated on the principles of protecting the country and patriotism.
Сильну армію і кропіткою
We have
роботою
created a
наших
strong
дипломатів
army, and due to the
забезпечили
painstaking
міжнародну
work
політику
of
підтримки
our diplomats,
незалежності України.
we provided international political and diplomatic support to independent
Твердо
Ukraine.
обрали власний шлях.
And most importantly, we have firmly chosen our own path of development, and we do not have the right to withdraw from it for the sake of the satisfaction of external enemies or their agents inside the country. First, we're breaking all the bonds that connect us with the Russian Empire and the Soviet Union.
Зробити незалежність незворотню,
to make independence irreversible. Ukraine,
великою та сильною,
big and strong,
без жодної перспективи повернення
without
в зону
any
російського
prospect
впливу.
of returning to the zone of Russian influence. This is the main task of our
Це
generation.
завдання суспільства,
This is the task of the
завдання
society
обраної цим суспільством влади.
and the government elected by it. The
Ми,
second,
українці, йдемо
we,
своїм шляхом.
Ukrainians,
І розуміємо,
make our own
що
path
насамперед
and
маємо
realize
спиратися на
that we
власні
must
сили,
firstly rely on our
використовувати
own strength.
багатство країни в
We
інтересах
use
народу і
the
наступних
wealth of
поколінь.
the country in interests
Країна
of
має
our
жорстко
people
захищати
and the
свої
generations to
національні
come.
інтереси.
Ukraine must hardly defend its national interests.
Це ще надзвичайно важливо.
External help is still important to us, but above all, we have to help ourselves. Third,
Конкретними кроками зміцнити незалежність.
we have to strengthen our independence by concrete steps. For more than a year, there is a visa-free regime for Ukrainians to travel to the European Union. We become inevitably a part of a single European space. This strengthens our political independence. The EU-Ukraine Association Agreement and also Free Trade Agreement went into force. As the result, the share of exports to the European Union now stands at almost 43%, compared with 32% 5 or 4 years ago. A clear European strategy has enabled us to compensate for the huge losses that we suffered as a result of the politically motivated closure of Russian market. Russia will no longer be able to blackmail Ukraine because we have strengthened our economic independence. Since the fall of 2016, yesterday was already 1,000 days that we're not buying gas from Russia. Ukrainian Naftogaz beat Gazprom in the Stockholm Arbitration Court. We won $4.6 billion. This is the way how we're getting energy independence. Fourth, and what I would like to emphasize, the body cannot be free when the soul is captive. And let us hear today in Constantinople, in Moscow, and the Vatican. We have a firm intention to cut off the last node which the empire is using for its desperate tries to bind us. We're determined to put an end to the unnatural and non-canonical presence of a significant part of our Orthodox community that depends on the Russian Church that sanctifies Putin's hybrid war. The Church that day and night prays for the Russian authorities and for the army, also Russian. Christening came to us from the Constantinople Mother Church, and it was spread to the vast expanses of Eastern Europe from Kiev. Ukrainian Christianity has more than 1,000-year-long history, its own theological, liturgical and church tradition, and now that we restored and defended the state independence of Ukraine, with the capital here in Kiev, there is no reason why among the other local Orthodox churches there shouldn't be equal Orthodox Church of Ukraine. The question of Thomas on autocephaly for the Orthodox Church of Ukraine . The church leaders and the public are clapping the president. The question of Thomas on autocephaly for the Orthodox Church goes far beyond their religion. It is from the same rod that the strengthening of the army, that the protection of the language, that the struggle for membership in the European Union and joining NATO. This is another strategic benchmark in our historic way. This is a significant component of our independence. An integration into the European and Euro-Atlantic space is a reliable way to ensure the security, development of Ukraine, and decent living conditions for people. Such integration is 100% guarantee of our independence. But I want to emphasize that Europe also needs us, because without us, the European Union will not be a completed project. Because the civilization edge of the modern Europe passes along the northeastern border of Ukraine. On the continent, all those who are not blinded by Russian money understand that without European Ukraine, Ukraine, Europe will not be the same. Without restoration of the territorial integrity of our state, all boundaries in Central and Eastern Europe will be uncertain. The Russian war against Ukraine is part of the Kremlin's plan to ruin the European Union and NATO. And our warriors in the East are standing in defense of the security and well-being not only of the whole Ukraine, but also of the whole Europe. So we are going to NATO and the European Union not with empty hands. We're heading not empty-handed. Today we have one of the best armies in the continent. It will substantially strengthen NATO's eastern flank. Instead, we count on the guarantees of collective security provided by the alliance. Dear Ukrainians, since you entrusted me with the position of the President of Ukraine, the state compass confidently shows to the west in the opposite direction to the empire. Its arrow never shuddered. And I assure you it will never shudder until this compass is in my hands. Moreover, I would insist on the consolidation of the Constitution, of our desire to join the European Union and join NATO. Lawyers found a formula how to do it quickly and effectively. Until the opening of the autumn session of the Ukrainian Parliament, which is scheduled for the September 4th, I will submit the bill on the matter. And I will be working day and night. I will do everything so it will be approved. The most reliable guarantees and the guarantees of Ukraine's independence and the peaceful work of Ukrainians are our soldiers, the armed forces of Ukraine, the National Guard, the border guards, the SBU, police and other law enforcement agencies. How the Ukrainian army has changed during the 4 years, we can talk for hours. There is a lot to talk about. But better than any words, we'll now see the movement, the march of heroes. The People's Army today reports to the people, and people are proud of their army. Everyone who is involved in its development, in the development of the army, who in 2014 was sending phone messages with the money, who was the volunteer, everyone has the right to be proud of his or her own contribution of strengthening the defense capabilities of Ukraine. We bow our heads down in memory of the heroes who gave their lives for the peaceful future of Ukraine. We bow. We mourn with every Ukrainian. We mourn with every Ukrainian family that has lost a husband or son, mother or sister. The eternal memory to the heroes who fell in the battles for our free, independent Ukraine. Eternal glory to them. Everyone is responding, glory to the heroes. The President is asking to honor with the minute of silence the memory of Ukrainian soldiers, the civilians who died in a war that the Russian aggression has unleashed. We will not forget, and we will
бойові
never
прапори
forgive.
схилити.
The command to bow down the battle flags.
Пливе кача по тисині, пливе кача по тисині.
Дорогі українці,
Dear Ukrainians,
наша українська армія
our Ukrainian army
– це армія миру.
is an army of peace.
І влітку 2014 року
And in
вона
the summer of
успішно звільнила більшу
2014,
частину
it
Донбасу
successfully
від
liberated
бойовиків.
the biggest part of the
Після того,
Donbass
як
from the
сталося
militants.
пряме вторгнення
And after a
російських
direct
регулярних
invasion of
міцно
Russian
тримає оборону
regular
на лінії
troops, it firmly holds the
надійно
defense
захищає Україну
on the
вздовж
line of
всієї лінії
collision.
кордону.
It reliably protects Ukraine along the entire border
Влада зробила все, аби
with our aggressive
вплив
neighbor.
війни на суспільство
The authorities
був
have done
якомога менший.
everything to reduce the
Свого
impact of the
часу я
war on
відкинув
society.
пропозиції оголосити воєнний стан.
One time I rejected the proposals to declare a state of war that would substantially restrict political rights and freedoms of
Від
citizens.
часткової мобілізації ми перейшли
From
до
partial
формування
mobilization,
контрактної армії.
we went to the formation of a
Витрачаючи
contract
більше
army.
як 5% ВВП на
And
оборону і
after spending
безпеку,
more than 5% of
не знімаючи
GDP on
пальця з
defense
курка,
and security,
зосередилися на реформах і мирному
we
будівництві.
focused on reforms
нічого не
and
прагнемо
peace building.
більше.
We do not want anything more than
І ніхто
peace,
не прагне миру більше.
and no one wants peace more than we do.
Справжній мир, він обов'язково настане на
And the
нашій.
real peace will definitely come to Ukraine.
Може тільки боєздатна армія.
Only a
Вона день за днем
combat-capable army can provide peace and victory, and is becoming stronger day by day. As long as the nation fights, it lives. This is the phrase said by Levko Lukyanenko, author of the Declaration of Independence
90 років.
of Ukraine. Today, Levko Lukyanenko would have turned 90 years old. We are all so grateful
За волю України.
for his contribution to the struggle for freedom of Ukraine and the freedom of its citizens.
Ви щойно
Dear
чули і бачили,
compatriots,
як міністр
you've
оборони
just heard and saw how the defense minister
вітав учасників параду
congratulated for the first time in
Слава
history
Україні.
the participants of the parade with the words "Glory to Ukraine." The strongest are those traditions that are
які генеруються народом і
they're born
людськими серцями,
around the people,
передаються з покоління
by
в
people's
покоління.
hearts,
І серед наших символів є не лише
transmitted
прапор,
from
не
generation
лише
to
герб, не
generation.
лише гімн, про які написано в Конституції України.
Among our symbols are not only the flag, the coat of arms, the anthem,
І від нього ми
but
почуваємо
also
колосальне
national slogan,
піднесення.
"Glory to
А
Ukraine,
наших
glory to
ворогів
the heroes."
корчить, як чортів від ладану.
And our enemies creep as devils from this.
Воно саме увійшло в наше життя, а тепер
This
настав
phrase
час
has
надати йому
entered
силу закону.
into
Ось чому
our lives by
подаю до
itself,
Верховної Ради
and now it's time
законопроект
to
про
give
зміни до військових
this phrase the
статутів,
power of law.
згідно
That is why I
якого це
submit
гасло
to the
стане
Verkhovna Rada a bill
головним вітанням
on changes to
Збройних Сил
military
України.
greeting, according to which the slogan will become the main
З 27-ї
greeting in the
річницею
armed forces of Ukraine.
незалежності України.
Happy 27th anniversary of Ukraine's independence.
відродження української
Happy
держави.
100th anniversary
Слава
of the revival of
українському
Ukrainian
війську.
statehood. Glory to the
Слава
Ukrainian army.
Збройним
Glory
силам
to the
України.
armed forces of Ukraine.
Слава
Glory
українському народу.
to the Ukrainian people.
Україні слава!
Glory to Ukraine.
Розпочинаємо церемонію вручення державних нагород та присвоєння
A solemn
вищого
military award
офіцерського
ceremony is starting on the
Указ
Independence
президента
Square.
України
The decree of the
оголошує
President of
глава
Ukraine will be announced by the head of the presidential administration, Igor Ryanin.
Указами Президента України за особисту мужність, героїзм і самопожертву виявлені у захисті державного суверенітету та територіальної цілісності України, вірність військовій присязі, присвоєно звання Герой України,
With the bravery,
ордена Золота Зірка,
the Golden Star, Hero of Ukraine, is being handed over to the family of the deceased lieutenant of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Oleg Dovhy,
Іван Іванович.
Deputy Commander of the Mountain Infantry Platoon of the 15th Separate Mountain Infantry Battalion of the 128th Separate Mountain Infantry Brigade. His parents are receiving the award. Oleg Dovhy had been defending Ukraine since December 2014. He was leading the platoon near Chernuhin, a strategically important settlement on the way to Debaltseve. But on January 31st, 2015, he was killed in his shelter by the shell from the multiple launch rocket system Grad. Nevertheless, his platoon did not lose the positions that day.
Особисту мужність і героїзм, виявлені у захисті державного суверенітету та територіальної цілісності України, присвоєно звання
For the dignity and heroism,
ордена Золота Зірка,
Golden Star, Hero of Ukraine, is being handed over to the Lieutenant Volodymyr Sosnin, Deputy Commander of the Airborne and Assault Platoon, Instructor of the Airborne Training of the 13th Airborne and Assault Battalion of the 95th Separate Airborne and Assault Brigade. On July 29, 2014, an assault group headed by a serviceman took control and further maintenance of the strategically important point for the creation of the Mariinovsky corridor, the Mount Saur-Mogyla. The rank of Major General is being appointed to the Hero of Ukraine, Colonel Serhiy Shaptala, Chief of the Staff, First Deputy Commander of the South Operational Command of the Ground Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
Президент України Петро Порошенко.
Signed by the President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. The award ceremony is completed now, and a solemn ceremony of awarding with the battle flags is starting on the Independence Square. And also in a few minutes, new names will be assigned to the military units serving in the east of Ukraine. Battle flags will be handed over to the commanders of military units by the President of Ukraine, Supreme Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko, Minister of Defense of Ukraine, General Stepan Poltorak, Chief of the General Staff, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, also General Viktor Muzhenko. In order to restore national military historical tradition with the commemoration of the outstanding commanders, heroes of the national liberation struggle for Ukrainian people, taking into account the exemplary accomplishment of their tasks, and due to the occasion of the 27th anniversary of the Ukrainian independence, the honorary titles are being appointed by the presidential decree. Where the 93rd Separate Mechanized Brigade will be called now by honorable name Cold Yar. The spirit of freedom and national dignity is inherent to the soldiers of the 93rd Brigade, which in March 2014 was one of the first to defend the state. The personnel team participated in the liberation of Selidovo, Ukrainka, Kharlivka, Avdiivka, and also fought in the battles for Donetsk airport and near Ilovaisk. Colonel Vladislav Klitschkov, commander of the brigade, receives a battle flag. Now it's not the 93rd Separate Mechanized Brigade, but the brigade called Yar. Heroic name. The 30th Individual Mechanized Brigade will be named after the Prince Konstantin Ostrozhsky, an outstanding commander, the winner of the Moscow troops near Orsha. The first tactical team of the brigade participating in the unique military operation Raid. In the combat chronicle of the brigade, there are fierce battles for Savur-Mohyla, Stepanivka, Rubizhne, Metalist, Latugin, and in the area of the Svitlodar Arc. A battle flag with a ribbon of honorary title, the name of Prince Konstantin Ostrozhsky, is received by the commander of the brigade, Colonel Ivan Garas. 56th Separate Motorized Infantry Brigade will be called with the honorary name Mariupol. The history of the brigade is closely linked to the defense of Mariupol. Back in 2014, the units that later became part of this brigade participated in counter-offensive actions in the Novoazovsk direction in order to prevent the Russian terrorist forces from seizing the strategic center of the Priazovia.
Гармашів, війська Запорізького низового. Сучасні бойові традиції бригади сформовані в запеклих боях з російським
55th Separate Artillery Brigade will be called with the honorary name Zaporizhzhia Siege. Brigade servicemen have the best fighting virtues of their glorious predecessors, the gunners of the Zaporizhzhia Forces troops. The modern combat traditions of the brigade are formed in the fierce battles with the Russian aggressor near Ilovaisk, Volnobacha, Debaltseve, Mariupol, and other settlements of the Donbass. 15th Brigade of Transport Aviation will be called by the name of the world-renowned aircraft designer Oleg Antonov. Since 2014, servicemen of the brigade honorably fulfill the tasks of protecting the territorial integrity of the Ukrainian state. The Ukrainian people will always remember 5 members of the crew of the AN-30 airplane number 80 that gave their lives saving the civilians in Slavyansk. Colonel Dmitry Filatov, commander of the brigade, receives a battle flag. 3rd Separate Special Occupation Regiment will be named after the Prince Sviatoslav the Brave. Kiev Prince Sviatoslav the Brave was one of the most prominent generals and warriors of medieval Europe. His famous saying, "Going to you," became a symbol of invincibility of Ukrainians and of Ukrainian fighting spirit for the personnel of the special forces. Regiments soldiers took an active part in the defense of Donetsk Airport and Savur-Mohyla. The commander of the regiment, Hero of Ukraine, Colonel Alexander Trepak, receives a battle flag. The 21st Individual Brigade of the Public Order of the National Guard of Ukraine will be named after Petro Kolnyshevsky. Back in 2014, the brigade servicemen participated in the liberation of Severodonetsk and Lysychansk, where in one of the battles, the commander, Colonel Alexander Radyevsky, was killed. For the manifestation of personal courage and heroism, he was awarded with the title of Major General posthumously by a decree of the President. Colonel Alexander Alenin, commander of this brigade, receives a battle flag with the honorary title Petro Kolnyshevsky. The 3rd Border Detachment of the Eastern Regional Directorate of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine will be named after a hero of Ukraine, Colonel Yevgeny Pikus, officer who saved many Ukrainians at the cost of his life. For personal courage and his professionalism discovered in fighting for the state's sovereignty and territorial integrity, 28 servicemen of the section were awarded with state awards. And Colonel Alexander Martinyuk, commander of the detachment, receives a battle flag with the honorary title after Yevgeny Pikus.
Церемонію присвоєння почесних найменувань та вручення бойових прапорів військовим частинам завершено.
The ceremony of honorary titles and battle flags is completed. This was the very important moment for Ukraine and the Ukrainian army, because now we not only have the modern Ukrainian army, but we have new names for it. The commanders of the military units and the flag bearers with the battle flags are going to the locations of consolidated calculations. I just want to remind you that after the first part of the parade, the second part with the military aviation is also going to take place in the center of Kyiv in honor of the 27th anniversary of Ukrainian independence. The air above the center of Kyiv will be boosted by Mi-8 and Mi-24 helicopters, cargo military transport planes, including the newest AN-178. And now you can see the video from the airplanes that are getting closer to the center of Kyiv. They're on their way, and I believe in a few minutes we will be able to see them boasting the sky. Air maneuvers will be performed by the combat fighters. Look how beautiful it is. These soldiers are defending our sky, and our sky is peaceful due to these people.
До урочистого маршу!
The solemn procession of troops finally is about to begin on the Independence Square. These soldiers were training for so many months just for this moment. You can see these 4 historical military flags. They look confident and strong. Every gesture means bravery and strength.
На Майдані Незалежності розпочинається урочисте проходження військ. Хрещатиком крокують наймолодші учасники урочистої події.
And the youngest participants of the event are going through Kreshchatyk. These are the students of the Kyiv Military Lyceum, named after Ivan Bohun. Head of the division, excellent student of Lyceum, Vladislav Kucherivsky. Some of the Lyceum students are children of the soldiers that are fighting in the east of Ukraine. The chief of the Lyceum is the hero of Ukraine, Major General Ihor Hordychuk.
прапор 3-ї залізної дивізії армії УНР.
Also, the ceremony is being opened with the flags of the Army of Ukrainian People's Republic, as I mentioned before, flag of the 3rd Iron Division of the Ukrainian People's Republic Army, flag of the 1st Ukrainian Regiment named after Bogdan Khmelnytsky, flag of the Ukrainian Zaporizhia Regiment, and flag of the 2nd Zaporizhia Infantry Regiment.
В районі проведення операції Об'єднаних Сил.
In front of the stage are the groups of the flag bearers with flags of the armed forces of Ukraine and battle flags of the military units whose personnel heroically performs the constitutional duty in the area of the Joint Forces operation. On the historical square in the center of the capital, officers of the National Defense University of Ukraine. The university is a real forge of high-level officer personnel and is considered to be the bearer of knowledge, practical skills, and patriotism. 10 of its graduates have been awarded the high rank of the Hero of Ukraine. Among them, excellent graduates Major General Andriy Kovalchuk and Colonel Serhiy Shapko. The joint unit of the Ground Forces of Ukraine is walking along the Kreshchatyk Street. For self-sacrifice and heroism, 16 servicemen of the ground forces of Ukraine have been awarded with the title of Hero of Ukraine. More than 5,000 servicemen have been awarded state awards. The column is being headed by the Colonel Sergei Skripnik. And now Marines are on the Independence Square. The column is formed of the servicemen of the 36th Separate Marine Corps Brigade, wearing the hats in the sea wave color. From this year on, the Ukrainian Marine Corps celebrate its professional holiday on May 23rd. The day is set by the decree of the President in honor of the centenary of the creation of the Marines of Hetman Skoropadsky. On the main square, now we can see airborne troops, the establishment of a new name for the elite army and its professional holiday on November 21st in honor of the Archangel Michael not only strengthened the spirit of Ukrainian soldiers but also introduced new national aspirations. Today, the paratroopers are honored and proud to wear the colors of maroon, showing the best features of the defender of the native land. And now ADO participants, heroes who today are the reserve of the armed forces of Ukraine, are marching as well. This unit consists of the warriors who have an inevitable battle experience and very valuable battle experience. They're always being ready to carry out their constitutional duties. And now we can see the cadet gunners of the National Academy of Army, named after Hetman Petro Sagaidachny. 359 graduates of this academy are the participants in the hostilities with the Russian aggressor. Here we can see the tankers. On the Festa Kreshchatyk Street, we can see the students of the Military Institute of the Tank Troops. Sergeant Igor Fedotchenko, Junior Sergeant Mikhailo Gonchar, and Senior Soldier Miroslav Sisutka are the cavalrymen of the Order for Courage. Now we can see the students of Kharkiv National University of Air Forces, named after Ivan Kozhedub. In the column, we can see combatants Junior Sergeant Dmitry Bobritsky, Senior Soldier Vladimir Kobzev, soldiers Ilya Stavinsky, Taras Ivanchuk, and many others.
Урочистим маршем головною площею столиці крокують військовослужбовці військово-морських сил.
The solemn march is also being conducted by the military officers of the naval forces. Among them, there are participants of the anti-terrorist operation: Alexander Muravany, Roman Buyar, Yuri Ostroukhov, Nazar Sverapov, and many others. This column is headed by the Deputy Chief of the Institute of Naval Forces, First Rank Captain Rostislav Sharov. Now we can see the Special Operations Forces of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. They are stepping on the Independence Square. The joint unit has the cavalryman of the Order for the Courage of the Third Degree, Sergeant Vladimir Voronkov, and the soldier Anton Dogarev.
До трибуни наближається парадний розрахунок воїнів-розвідників.
The reconnaissance warriors are also marching, and they are very close to the stage. The joint unit of the Zhytomyr Military Institute, named after Korolov. Among those soldiers, the combatants: Senior Sergeant Mykola Zagorui, Sergeant Mykola Vysotsky, soldiers Roman Demyanchuk, Nazar Shipilov, and many others. Also participating in the march are warriors, the connection agents who represent the Military Institute of Telecommunications and Informatization, named after heroes of the Krute. The column is headed by the head of the facility, Colonel Yevhen Rybka. Now we can see the joint regiment of the cadets of the Military Institute of Taras Shevchenko National University and the Military Institute of Telecommunications and Informatization, named after heroes of Krut. Today, more than 55,000 women serve in various spots in Ukraine, in various divisions in the Armed Forces of Ukraine, 25,000 of which are service women of the Armed Forces of Ukraine. Now we can see the representatives of the National Academy of Internal Affairs. Today the Academy employs and educates about 2,000 people that participate in the hostilities in the east of Ukraine. The parade, the column, is headed by the Colonel Ruslan Serbin. He's also the pro-rector of the Academy.
Майданом Незалежності крокує особовий склад першої президентської бригади оперативного призначення.
We can see the personnel of the first presidential brigade of the operational appointment of the National Guard of Ukraine, named after Hetman Petro Doroshenko. For personal courage and heroism, 325 servicemen of the brigade were awarded with state awards. The column is headed by the commander of the brigade, Colonel Volodymyr Musienko. And now we can see the students of the National Academy of the National Guard of Ukraine. This school has trained more than 30,000 pupils, many of whom glorified our country with their achievements. 38 graduates of the Academy are awarded with high state awards. And next to march are national students of the National Academy of the State Border Guard Service of Ukraine, named after Bogdan Khmelnytsky. The column is being headed by Major General Oleg Shenkaruk, the rector of the Academy. And now we can see Ukrainian border guards. More than 19,000 Ukrainian soldiers in green hats are taking part in hostilities in the east of Ukraine. And for courage and heroism, 856 of them have been awarded with state awards.
Урочистим маршем крокують офіцери та курсанти Національної академії служби безпеки України.
Solemnly marching are the officers and cadets of the National Academy of the Security Service of Ukraine. 22 graduates of the Academy are awarded with state awards, and the rector of this academy, Colonel Sergei Kudinov, is in charge of the column. The state service for emergencies at the parade is represented by the cadets of the National University of Civil Defense of Ukraine. The column is being headed by the rector of the university, Lieutenant General Volodymyr Sadkovy. And look at this firm step.
На Майдані Незалежності зведений парадний розрахунок окремого президентського полку імені гетьмана Богдана Хмельницького.
And now we can see the separate presidential regiment named after Hetman Bogdan Khmelnytsky. Among those soldiers of the regiment, there are 250 participants of war in the east of Ukraine. Among them, Knight of the Order Bogdan Khmelnytsky, the Chief of Staff, Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Dovichenko.
Держав-партнерів України розпочинає Національний президентський оркестр України.
The National Presidential Orchestra is solemnly passing through the center of Kiev.
До трибуни наближається прапороносна група спільної литовсько-польсько-української бригади.
And now the flag-bearing group of the joint Lithuanian-Polish-Ukrainian brigade is getting closer to the stage, is marching through the Independence Square and the Khreshchatyk Street.
Досвід та досвід миротворчої діяльності. На марші підрозділ Збройних сил Канади.
Also, now we can see the representatives of the Armed Forces of Canada. Canada provides significant support to the defense sector of Ukraine.
Спільно діють у рамках військової тренувальної місії «Юніфаєр» із підготовки українських військовослужбовців.
We have the drills named Unifier that are happening not for the first year and that are regularly teaching the Ukrainian soldiers how to take action during the hostilities in the east of Ukraine. Now we can see the flag-bearing group from the Czech Republic. Now we can see on the Independence Square the representatives of the Armed Forces of the Republic of Estonia. Estonia always provides rehabilitation of the wounded Ukrainian soldiers, and its instructors are actively involved in the training of the Ukrainian servicemen. Now we can see in front of the stage flag-bearing group of the Armed Forces of Georgia. Our bilateral communication in terms of military sphere is developing year after year.
На Хрещатику підрозділ Збройних сил Великої Британії.
Now we can see the unit of the British Armed Forces in the framework of military cooperation within the training mission Orbital. Since the beginning of 2014, more than 20,000 Ukrainian servicemen have been trained. Now we can see the main street of the capital, the flag bearing soldiers of the Armed Forces of the Republic
Перед трибуною підрозділ Збройних сил Литовської Республіки. Литва надає матеріально-технічну допомогу для потреб
unit of the armed forces of the Republic of Lithuania.
наших військових.
Lithuania provides logistical support for the armed forces of Ukraine and maintains a high level of professionalism of our military.
На Майдані Незалежності підрозділ Збройних сил Республіки Молдова.
Now we can see the representatives of the armed forces of Moldova.
Міжнародних військових навчаннях в рамках програми НАТО «Партнерство заради миру».
The soldiers of our countries jointly participate in international military exercises within the NATO partnership. And now we can see the representatives, the personnel of the armed forces of Poland. Our friendly relations between Ukraine and Poland and close military cooperation maintain the proper level of defense of both countries. Now we can see the Romanian Armed Forces unit.
Перед трибуною підрозділ Збройних сил Сполучених Штатів Америки.
And now we can see the regiment of the United States Army. Nowadays, the United States provide a massive support to our country in the military sphere. Since 2014, they trained 11 battalions for the Ukrainian army. And finally, we can see the veterans of the anti-terrorist operation. This group of soldiers represents all the divisions of the armed forces of Ukraine.
Відзначені високими державними нагородами та особливою шаною усього українського народу. На чолі зведеного підрозділу лицар ордена Богдана Хмельницького полковник Олег Дегтярьов. На Майдані Незалежності зведений оркестр Національної гвардії України. Перед трибуною у складі почесної варти
And now we can see the orchestra of the National Guard of Ukraine.
Управління Державної охорони України. Цей правоохоронний орган спеціального
And next, the officers of the State Guard Office of Ukraine.
А зведений загін управління держохорони був одним із перших, який без вагань у квітні 2014 року став на захист
Special
державного
purpose law
суверенітету
enforcement agency
нашої
provides
країни.
safety and security during the main holiday of the state, during the Independence Day of Ukraine. And the joint unit of the State Protection Office was one of the first, which was not hesitating, and in April 2014 was started defending the state sovereignty and territorial integrity of Ukraine. And now the center of Kyiv is being prepared for the equipment parade. We will see this portable anti-tank missile systems Javelin provided to Ukraine by the United States. This weapon is of the third generation. It uses shoot and forget principle in its work, which means the operator does not have to sit and correct the flight of the rocket while just flying towards the target. Also, the designed Ukraine Bogdana howitzer and Sapson missile systems will be showcased on the parade. All this technique, all this equipment goes through this long process of modernization with the new connection equipment, with the new equipment that makes this tanks more efficient and more effective in the battles in the east of Ukraine.
17-ї окремої танкової бригади. Основний бойовий танк Т-64 – розробка українських майстрів танкобудування конструкторського бюро імені Морозова.
And this is the main battle tank T-64. It's the development of the Ukrainian manufacturers.
Динамічною системою захисту та сучасними засобами зв'язку.
This tank is equipped with a modern engine, night vision devices.
БМП-2 30-ї окремої механізованої бригади імені князя Костянтина Острозького.
Now we can see the fighting vehicles BMP-2 of the 30th Individual Mechanized Brigade, named after Prince Konstantin Ostrozky.
Тепловізійний прицільний комплекс. Озброєння БМП-2 дозволяє вести боротьбу з різними цілями.
They are equipped with the latest thermal imaging sighting complex.
Головною площею столиці рухається десантно-штурмовий підрозділ 95-ї окремої десантно-штурмової бригади.
Now we can see the airborne assault unit of the 95th Separate Assault Brigade
зі встановленим
with
сучасним
BTR
бойовим модулем «Штурм».
3DA.
Силова установка, що значно покращує її маневрені можливості та забезпечує
There is the installation of a modern combat model, Storm.
Хрещатиком рухається штурмовий
This
підрозділ
combat
морської
vehicle
піхоти
greatly
на
improves
бронетранспортерах ПТР-70ДІ
the maneuverability,
Миколаївського бронетанкового заводу. Завдяки
and
проведеній
it's very
модернізації
efficient in the combat
броньовані машини
situation.
отримали принципово нові маневрені
And now we
властивості
can see the
та
assault division of
економічні
Marine
вимоги, що
Corps.
значно розширило район їх застосування.
Due to the modernization, armored cars received fundamentally new maneuvering properties and economic engines. Now we can see a unit of mobile counter-battery fighting radar station ANTPQ-36. The system is designed to detect and track artillery and rocket launchers, as well as to provide counter-battery combat in all circumstances.
Головною площею столиці рухаються тактичні броньовані колісні машини «Дозор-Б».
Now we can see tactical armored cars Dozor B of the 95th Separate Assault Brigade. They're created by the Kharkiv Design Bureau of Engineering, Dozor B. They have the latest system of navigation and communications. The machine develops speeds up to 120 kilometers per
У
hour.
складі механізованої колони санітарні автомобілі «Хаммер» та «Богдан». Вони призначені для другого етапу евакуації поранених.
Now we can see sanitary cars Hummer and Bogdan. They are designed for the evacuation of the wounded in various types of the combat zones.
На Майдані Незалежності зведений розвідувальний підрозділ, озброєний вітчизняними
2,000 wounded servicemen were saved due to these cars.
Лелека та ПД-1.
Now we can see the reconnaissance unit armed with Fury, Leleka PD-1.
Наземних об'єктів з повітря, ведення спостереження за ними і передачі оперативної інформації.
These complexes are used at distances from 30 to 80 kilometers to detect the object from air, to monitor it, to transmit operational information, and to obtain accurate geographic location in the real time.
На дальності до 5 кілометрів і швидко змінювати свою позицію.
And now the armored cars Kozak-2 of Ukrainian production. They're equipped with anti-tank missile complexes Stugna-P. And now we can see the portable anti-tank missile systems Javelin that are being installed on the specialized armored cars Varta.
комплекс у рамках допомоги переданий урядом Сполучених Штатів Америки.
Javelins are designed to destruct armored vehicles, fortifications on the ground, as well as helicopters and drones at low altitude and speed. They're being provided by the United States of America. And now this is the public debut of self-propelled howitzer Bogdana. Designed and made in Ukraine according to NATO standards, the Bogdana is a 155mm wheeled howitzer. The missile is making its public debut at the parade in Kiev for the first time.
На марші командирський автомобіль з апаратурою управління АК-1, яка дозволяє здійснювати
And now we can see the commander's car with the control equipment AK-1.
Взаємодія засобів вогневого ураження, протитанкових гармат «Рапіра» з
It equipped with anti-tank guns Rapira with equipment AK-1. It allows to shoot very effectively, very well targeted, with high precision.
Хрещатиком рухаються артилерійські підрозділи 44-ї окремої артилерійської бригади.
Now we can see the units of the 44th Separate Artillery Brigades armed with artillery systems Hyacin B and Msta B.
Цей комплекс дозволяє з високою точністю
This complex allows
проміжок часу виявляти мінометні батареї
to
радіусі
detect
10 кілометрів.
the enemy within a radius of 10 kilometers with high precision and in a short period of time.
До трибуни наближається батарея самохідних гаубиць.
Now the unit of the self-propelled howitzers whole is heading through the Chrestiatic Street and Independence Square. It is made for intelligence and data transmission for the armed forces of Ukraine. It allows in the shortest possible time to solve tasks for the preparation of artillery units for fire. And now 152nd self-propelled howitzer Academy of the 30th Individual Mechanized Brigade named after Prince Konstantin Ostrowski.
На Майдані Незалежності реактивна система залпового вогню «Вільха», на якій встановлено автоматизовану систему управління пусками реактивних снарядів.
Multiple launch rocket system Vilha.
Представленого на параді потужного зразка реактивної артилерії
It has automated control system for rocket launchers installed. And also the 300mm rocket system Smerch. Smerch operates in the area up to 70 hectares, which means a huge distance.
На головній вулиці Києва нова вітчизняна розробка радіолокаційний комплекс розвідки.
And now a new domestic development, a radar reconnaissance artillery complex. It is used to determine the coordinates of enemy positions over long distances. It is accompanied by the tactical missile complexes Tochka of the 19th Missile Brigade. This complex is being used for damage of the land vehicles, reconnaissance and shock systems, checkpoints and airfields at a distance of up to 120 kilometers. Now we can see the unit of anti-aircraft missile guns Tunguska of the 72nd Separate Mechanized Brigade, named after the Zaporozhye, Black Zaporozhye.
По наземних і надводних цілях в усіх видах бою. На чолі колони рухомий пункт розвідку протиповітряної оборони 9С-80.
The intelligence and control units of air defense 9S-81.
На Майдані Незалежності батарея тактичних зенітних ракетних комплексів 9К-330 «Тор».
Now we can see the tactical anti-aircraft missile system TOR on Independence Square. These combat vehicles are designed to cover important administrative and military facilities from attacks with the cruise missiles.
На марші самохідні вогневі установки.
Now it is the turn for the self-propelled fire units Buk of the 223rd Anti-Aircraft Missile Regiment. This complex is used to protect important state, administrative, economic, and military objects, as well as to combat air targets in conditions of intense radio resistance of the enemy.
До трибуни наближається зведений зенітний ракетний підрозділ, озброєний комплексами С-300В1, С-300ПС та С-300.
Now we can see the joint anti-aircraft missile unit is heading through the Independence Square.
Зі швидкістю до 4000 км за годину.
This equipment provides damage to targets that move at speeds up to 4,000 kilometers per hour at altitudes of up to 30,000 meters. The self-propelled launcher of the Operational Tactical Missile Complex you can see now in the center of Kiev. This is the new Ukrainian development. It's being designed in Ukraine to defeat the enemy's ground targets. So the mechanized column has passed. And many units of the equipment are actually designed in Ukraine, which means that we do improve and we do work on our defense capabilities and defense sector. We do create our new army in order to defend our territorial integrity. And now it's time to see the military aviation. The military aviation of the ground forces of the armed forces of Ukraine is opening the third part of the parade. You can see the helicopters of the 12 mechanized brigades that can carry the cargo and also troops.
В небі Києва підрозділ морських багатоцільових вертольотів берегового базування Мі-14 10-ї морської авіаційної бригади, який у повному складі разом із технікою...
Now we can see the marine multi-purpose helicopters of the coastal base of the Mi-14. This type of helicopter is designed to search and destroy submarines and conduct search and rescue operations.
Системи протиракетного захисту значно розширило бойові можливості.
It has modern navigation equipment and anti-missile defense systems. This greatly expanded the combat capabilities of those helicopters. And now a An-26 military transport aircraft is flying over Kiev. These aircrafts are intended for air transportation of personnel, transport, and at the distances up to 1,000 kilometers. The equipment is modernized. This allows flights to be carried out in accordance with the requirements of international flight safety standards. And our heavy military transport aircrafts IL-76, accompanied by multi-purpose Su-27 fighters. The president is proud. The tears in his eyes are visible, but it's also visible that he's very proud that he created this army. The IL-76 is capable of carrying up to 245 paratroopers by air. Now the armored attack aircraft Su-25 of the 299th Brigades of Tactical Aviation, named after Vasil Nikiforov. Now we can see front bombers of the Su-24 of the 7th Patrol Front Corps Tactical Aviation Brigade. Those aircrafts can work on the altitude up to 12,000 meters and a speed up to 2,000 kilometers per hour with the combat load of up to 7 tons. Now we can see multi-purpose, high maneuverable Su-27 fighter aircrafts. They're designed for air combat throughout the range of heights. Thanks to the modernization, the aircraft significantly improves combat capabilities due to the establishment of a modern weapon management system and the improvement of onboard monitoring and registration parameters of the flight.
В небі Києва український близькомагістральний транспортний турбореактивний літак Ан-178.
Now we can see the transport turbojet An-178 in the sky of Kiev. The aircraft is designed to transport personnel and cargo under all climatic conditions on regional and short-distance routes, and also at a distance up to 15 and thousands of kilometers.
Завершують проліт авіації винищувачі МіГ-29 40-ї бригади тактичної авіації. Винищувачі призначені для боротьби з авіацією у повітрі, нанесення ударів по наземних
Aircrafts MiG-29. These are fighter aircrafts of the 40th Tactical Aviation Brigade. They are finishing the parade.
Застосувати на літаках та удосконалило систему управління зброєю та пілотажно-навігаційним комплексом. Многое літа нашій славній, незалежній Україні.
Let's wish many long years to our glorious and independent Ukraine. The president is greeting all the dignitaries and top officials on the stage. Among them, there is Ukraine's Prime Minister Volodymyr Groysman, Chairman of the Ukrainian Parliament Verkhovna Rada Andriy Parubiy, Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council Alexander Turchinov, Head of the State Border Guard Service Colonel General Petro Tsigikal, Head of the Security Service of Ukraine Vasyl Grytsak, and others.
Річницею незалежності України та сторіччям відродження української державності. Від щирого серця, від усієї
Once again,
душі,
dear
бажаємо вам
compatriots, dear
миру,
guests of the
щедрої
capital of
долі,
Ukraine,
сили і наснаги
dear
в усіх
viewers,
ваших справах,
our
в ім'я
congratulations
соборної,
on the
незалежної,
27th anniversary of independent
демократичної,
Ukraine
процвітаючої
and the
України.
100th anniversary of the
Вічно
revival of
святиться
Ukrainian
віка ім'я твоє,
statehood.
Україно, з Днем Незалежності.
Let your name be holy forever, Ukraine. We sincerely wish our people peace and generous destiny, strength and inspiration in everything in the name of the united and independent, democratic, prosperous Ukraine. Every year you can see less and less legacy from the Soviet Union. Modern equipment is appearing on the parade. We have the new army, new uniform, new spirit around the people, and this is very visible during the parade. These soldiers and this equipment in a few days are going to come back to the east of Ukraine to defend our sovereignty and territorial integrity of our borders, to defend Ukraine from the Russian aggressor. Happy Independence Day of Ukraine.